Herman Prime, the newest open field archer commander, was just fully released into the game, and in today's video, I'm going to be discussing everything about him, giving you an in-depth guide on how to use him. I'll go over his skills, the best free-to-play level of skills, if his expertise is needed, everything to do with his skills, what he's good at, what he's not good at. I'll discuss his talent trees, I will discuss his best pairings, and finally I'll talk about, is he a good investment, especially if you're a free-to-play or a low spender. So if you're interested in Herman Prime, either he's an old commander and you're watching back on this video, or he's the brand new commander to the game and you're curious on how to use him, you want to stick around till the end of the video. Now, let's just start off today's video by getting right into the skills on Herman Prime, because I always say the skills are the most important part. So we'll start off with Herman Prime's active skill, and this is a 3-target AoE dealing 2000 damage factor in a fan-shaped area. Every additional target reduces the damage by 15%. That is very stock standard right there. Fairly strong AoE, we always love to see AoE in general, and it's a pretty decent amount of damage. But here is where his active skill gets a bit more spicy. Troops hit by this damage, being his active skill damage, are inflicted with 2 stacks of poison for 10 seconds. Poison effects can stack up to 15 times, and their duration, so that 10-second basically timer, resets whenever the target gains another stack of poison. So if you have 2 stacks, and it's got 3 seconds left, and they get another stack, or another 2 stacks, it goes to 4 stacks with 10 seconds left. So it kind of just keeps stacking on like that. For each stack of poison a troop has, they take 3% more skill damage. This is the same debuff as Tamiris. So Tamiris and Herman Prime's debuffs will actually stack and continue to add up. So if you have a Tamiris in your murderable and a Herman Prime in your murderable, their poison stacks will overlap and go to a higher number a lot quicker. So that's something to keep in mind right there. But also Herman Prime is basically a Tamiris with AoE, which is really, really insane. The next part on Herman Prime's kit, this is more of a stat skill, says that Herman Prime's archer units gain 20% increased attack, 20% increased defense, and 15% march speed. Very, very solid, just base stats right there. Can't go wrong with a very good amount of stats like this, and I'm liking the march speed there a lot. The next thing in Herman Prime's kit, his third skill, is more of one of those like DPS and unique skills, where it's got debuffs and it's got stuff in there that you're going to find quite useful. And the first part of his third skill says, this commander's troop deals 20% more AoE skill damage when attacking other troops on the map. So keep in mind, this is not a normal skill damage increase. Unlike most commanders like Zulang, like YSG, even like Boudica Prime's active skill, Herman Prime's third skill is only an AoE skill damage. So that means it's only going to affect someone like Zulang, Nebu, YSG. It won't affect someone like a Henry or a Boudica who have that single target damage. That's something to keep in mind, and something I've seen a few players kind of get a little bit confused about. The next part on Herman Prime's third skill is whenever he uses an active skill while attacking another troop on the map, his current target loses 20% defense for 2 seconds. Keep in mind, this debuff is in a passive skill slot, so it will stack on with a lot of other, well actually every commander in the game. So this is a very, very powerful debuff right there, stacking with every commander in the game. The final part of his skill says this commander's archer units take 5% more damage from cavalry, but they deal 5% more damage to infantry. So kind of a rock, paper, scissors right there. Much like what a Minotaur's second skill used to say, but now it says she takes less damage from cavs, which is not what it used to say, but I guess it says that now. So Herman Prime's third skill, definitely a powerful skill with some nice bonuses, though I'm not a big fan of him taking more damage from cavs, but hey, you sometimes win some, you sometimes lose some, so we'll see how that really does affect him, but I don't think it's going to be too major. Now, moving on to Herman Prime's fourth skill, Mandrake Root. This is probably another one of his most powerful skills, and it says, this commander's troop takes 1% less damage from poison targets. The damage reduction equals the number of stacks of poison times 1%. So if you have 15 stacks of poison, you will take 15% reduced damage, which is an insane amount. Also, whenever he launches a basic attack, 10% chance to deal extra direct damage up to 3 enemies in a fan-shaped area, damage factor 200. Every additional target reduces the damage by 15%. Well, I've always mentioned though, this is quite strange to see the damage reduction by every target on such a low number, but hey, I guess that's just what Lilith decided to do here. And also keep in mind, every troop that's hit by this extra damage right here is actually inflicted with 2 stacks of poison for 10 seconds. Keep in mind though, this extra AoE has a 3-second cooldown, but if you inflict those stacks of poison for 10 seconds and you get more on top, it will actually refresh them, even though it doesn't say that here, because all poison does work the same. So this skill is fairly strong due to the reason you can put more poisons and make your opponent take more damage, and it's got some okay AoE. I mean, it's an extra basically amount of damage you wouldn't have dealt, so I wouldn't really be complaining, and I think it's pretty decent. Also, the all damage reduction there is insane, especially if you're in a longer battle. It's really going to kick in right there. Moving on to Herman Prime's Expertise. This is a very simple skill. Whenever he inflicts a total of 25 stacks of poison on enemy troops, it triggers his active skill again at level 5, cooldown 10 seconds. So really simple skill right there. It pretty much allows him to get a double AoE, almost like, well, pretty much like Joan of Arc. Keep in mind though, it's Expertise only and has a 10-second cooldown. But something a lot of players were wondering is this basically Expertise only going to work with inflicting 25 stacks of poison on one target, or can it be up to 3 targets? And it can be up to 3 targets because it says enemy troops plural, so your AoE will technically count towards this. It's not on the one target. So that means Herman Prime is going to get a nice amount of double active skills going, and because he's got AoE, obviously that is pretty good. So now that we've gone over all of Herman's skills, what do I really think of him? We'll start off with things that he does quite well. What do I see in Herman's kit? That is pretty strong. First thing, I mean, his active skill is definitely something that stands out. 2000 damage in an AoE, and then also dealing the Tamiris poison effect in that AoE as well is pretty insane. So his active skill, definitely probably the most valuable part of his kit by far. Usually that's the case, but with Herman, it's extremely powerful. And the stacks of poison here, something we haven't seen in a very long time, and also something that is very powerful. Also do keep in mind that his third skill right here, this defense reduction in a passive skill slot, is once again a lot of utility. Plus he's got a ton of AoE skill damage right here, which means AoE commanders will pair really well with him, and also will get extra kills on the open field. Not only though will his active skill get extra kills as well. So Herman Prime in that situation, still an extremely powerful commander. And then finally, he's got a lot of tankiness against targets that you're able to inflict a ton of poison on. So if you're able to kind of hammer into a target for a little bit, they're pretty much not going to do any damage to you, because up to a 15% reduction is somewhere in the realm of the highest in the game out of everything. So Herman is a really tanky commander if you can get him ramped up. But keep in mind, in terms of open field situations, it's going to probably not be as possible, because ramping up a commander like Herman doesn't really work that well. And that's where his biggest disadvantages come in. When you look at Herman's kit, there's a lot of stuff in here that's like, he's got to ramp up. For his active skill, his debuff is only good if it really ramps up. If it ramps up, he's going to deal more skill damage increase than Boudica Prime. I think it's somewhere in the realm of 140% if you can get 3 targets, which is insane. But the thing is, it's very difficult to ramp up a commander like this on the open field. So in a real open field situation, you're more going to be looking for that bursty damage, that quick AoE, and he's still got that kind of covered. I mean, he's got the 3 target troops in a fan-shaped area, 2000 damage factor, he's got some instant AoE, he's even got some instant damage, and he's got some decent stats. But to access the full potential of his kit, he does need those slightly longer matchups where you're able to throw a few extra active skills, rather than an open field situation where you're probably just going from target to target, bang, active skill and run, active skill and run. In the real open field situation, it's going to really be difficult to channel his whole entire kit, and that's his biggest disadvantage. And other than that, though, he's just a strong archer commander. He's got good stats, he's got march speed, he's got defense. The thing he's only missing is really health, but other than that, he's in a very good position. But do keep in mind, the rest of his full potential is kind of locked behind those longer engagements, which you won't experience too often in a KVK. So now, if you're deciding to invest into Herman, how far in his kit would I say you have to go? And if you're watching this when he's first releasing, I think a 5-5-5-1 Herman is probably pretty good, because yes, this last skill is really powerful, but keep in mind the damage factor here is almost useless compared to level 5, so that being upgraded is not too amazing, and to really access that damage reduction, it is quite difficult, and it's going to take those longer fights. So maxing the first 3 skills on Herman Prime for now is perfectly fine, because you definitely want to get the defense reduction here, you definitely want the AoE, and you definitely need the damage bonus versus infantry. Otherwise, you're just taking extra damage from Cavs for nothing. And his second skill, really valuable for the open field here, while his active skill is obviously just valuable in and of itself. So Herman Prime right now, 5551 is really good, but if you really want to use him on the open field and fully channel his potential, he needs that expertise for the double active skill where he really does shine, because double active skills new to Archer commanders, no other commanders in the Archer basically crew do that, so definitely his expertise is worth it to work down towards, because inflicting 25 stacks of poison doesn't say it has to be in one engagement, so possibly it could go over multiple engagements, or if you're good at rage chaining, it can easily do like 2 active skills right there. So Herman Prime's expertise, it's got very good value, and if you're going to get him, I think you should work towards it. But 5551, very field usable. Fourth skill is very nice to have, but not necessarily needed if you would upgrade it. So no need to really worry about that fourth skill, you'll be fine by just going really for the first 3. So if you're looking to get him right now, first 3 skills, and then just ignore the fourth skill and his expertise until either you decide to invest him a little bit more or leave him as he is for now. So now that we've discussed all of Herman Prime's skills, let's go into his talent trees. And I've got 2 main talent trees which I really like. For these talent trees, we're going to be using Henry because I won't be using the versatility tree, so the conquering tree doesn't matter here, but he does have Archer and support, which is what Herman Prime is running. And for Herman Prime's talent trees, there are 2 I would recommend. I think they both have equal value. The first one is this talent tree right here, and this is kind of going full into Rejuvenate, grabbing yourself Razor Sharp to get a bit of extra rage, and then the rest just going into the Archer tree, because the Archer tree is obviously very strong. The only thing is, though, the rage gain on the support tree is very lackluster, though I can't really change that with any talent build, so do keep in mind if you're running Herman Prime and you go for the 3 out of 3 on Rejuvenate, I think it's recommended, because if you get a rage reduction, you've got the Rejuvenate there to kind of make up for it, and also in some situations that Rejuvenate, the extra 3rd slot or 3rd level, is actually going to give you a few extra rage points, and in my opinion, with a commander that's got a very slow rage cycle, having Rejuvenate is a powerful thing, and definitely something that's going to be important. Also, I did grab myself Loose Formation because 9% less skill damage is a lot less AoE damage, so I definitely would never ever be complaining about that in these situations. The other talent tree I chose was going a little bit more into the support tree, grabbing yourself Emergency Protection and only having 2 levels in Rejuvenate. Also, do keep in mind that I did drop Razor Sharp in this situation, which means his rage cycle, especially when you initially get into a fight, is going to be a little bit slower. But if you find that you've got someone like a Trajan in your murder board, this may be a better talent tree for you, especially because Emergency Protection is really good. I think it's a very underrated skill because whenever the commander's troops take skill damage, they have a 50% chance to reduce all incoming skill damage by 15% for 3 seconds. So getting hit by AoE just makes you tankier. Being hit by an opponent's active skill means their secondary active skill won't deal as much damage. So I definitely am a fan of Emergency Protection. If you want some more tankiness and you're okay with sacrificing some rage gain, this is probably the talent tree for you. And it's really simple. All in on Archer tree, Emergency Protection, and then just 2 out of 3 on Rejuvenate, and it's going to be a very solid build. Other than that though, I mean, I don't think there's many other talent trees. You wouldn't ever want to go full in on support with Herman, and the other Archer things like full quiver are only increased attack. So really, I think those are the 2 main talent trees you'd be looking at if you wanted to run Herman Prime on the open field. So now that we've discussed all of Herman Prime's talents and all of Herman Prime's skills, let's get into his best commander pairings. And I think there are like 3 or 4 that really stand out to me. And the first one that I think is really good and a lot of free-to-play low spenders who have just started the game will like is YSG, because YSG has a lot of synergy with Herman Prime. First of all, the things YSG are missing in his kit, he is missing a lot of march speed and he's also missing a lot of tankiness. What does Herman Prime have? Well, Herman Prime has a good amount of tankiness on that 4th skill if he gets ramped up, but mainly he has a lot of march speed. In terms of Archer commanders relative to other ones that are on the open field, he has probably like the best in the game. He's on par with Nebu, he's on par with Cyrus, a little bit worse than Henry, but keep in mind, Henry's doesn't apply if you're on territory. So I'm really a big fan of Herman Prime's march speed and his other tanky stats, which make him basically take less damage or reduce target defense, stuff like that, are going to be valuable with YSG because YSG doesn't have those more exotic skills. So YSG doesn't have those stats and Herman brings them. But also, YSG is bringing a massive skill damage increase, and in a double AoE march, that is amazing because you got Herman Prime's AoE dealing more damage, and then obviously YSG's nasty AoE also dealing extra damage. And don't forget, YSG is giving a ton of rage. He's probably one of the best rage engines in the game, so if you have him with Herman Prime, your initial rage cycle and your rage cycles after that are going to be much easier to do, and they're going to synergize really well for that fact. So if you've got YSG and you have nowhere to put him, Herman Prime is probably, if not the best choice in the game for him right now. The next command I would say is going to work really well with Herman is Zulang. I mean, I'm pretty sure everybody saw that coming. Zuj has no March speed, and Zulang has no defense at all in terms of actual stats. Because Zulang has attack and he has health. Herman Prime has no health, but he has defense. So there's a bit of synergy going on there. There's a nice, basically, kind of being able to cover all types of stats there. Also, Zulang is increasing all damage. Herman Prime has no all damage increase to himself. Plus, do keep in mind that Herman Prime has March speed, Zulang needs March speed. So lots of different stats right there that work really well with all the commanders. And obviously, I don't even think I need to say this, Zulang's an AoE commander. So there's a lot more synergy right there going on. Plus, if you run Zulang as a primary, you do get that skill tree, which in my opinion is a bit more superior than the support tree for the much faster rage cycle. So Zulang with Herman has a lot of potential, plus Zulang's got massive AoE in terms of an extra AoE skill and the fourth skill, in terms of his active skill, and then even in terms of his expertise allowing you to get his fourth skill to trigger quicker. There's a lot of stuff Zulang just does really well that will synergize crazily with Herman and Herman's massive AoE boost. So I think that Herman and Zulang obviously have crazy open field potential and will be quite good pairings. The final pairing I'm going to say is really good with Herman that most players will have access to is Boudica Prime, because Boudica Prime, even though she doesn't benefit from Herman Prime's AoE damage, we've seen that she still works really well with Herman. And also, she's just a tanky primary commander. Herman Prime can be a primary commander, but he's more of a secondary. You kind of want to hide him behind someone that's a bit beefier. You don't really want him to get swarmed down because he's got a lot of value for your meta ball. Boudica Prime kind of does hold that role. She's a bit more tanky. They're going to be really fast together because of the March speed. And Boudica's got stuff like skill damage reductions, which Herman Prime does not have. So definitely a lot of unique synergy in between those commanders. Plus, you can go silence immune when you run Boudica with Herman, which is very good. So they definitely have synergy together, and I've seen in some testing results they are pretty good. Now, moving on to some more exotic pairings, Henry's just going to be good because Henry's got decent, basically, skill damage reductions and decent defensive stats. I mean, probably didn't even have to say that. Henry's just a good commander with every archer commander. There's probably none that work bad with him. So Henry, probably going to be a decent pair if you don't have anywhere else to put Herman. And finally, Tamiris has some pretty good synergy. The poison stacks, being able to stack them up much quicker, means you get more active skills, you get more damage, you also take less damage. So there's a lot of unique synergy with Tamiris there. But from what I've seen, she's definitely not one of the most overpowered pairings, though she has her uses. So if you're looking to run Tamiris on the open field and you've got a relic and everything, putting it with Herman is definitely going to work. Also keep in mind, Tamiris' relic does give you some health, which is good with Herman, because Herman currently got no health. Tamiris, you get 15% extra archer health. Definitely can't complain about that. And you get some extra archer march speed as well. So there's a lot of extra bonuses through running that Tamiris and some fairly good synergy as well. But the main pairings I would recommend would be probably YSG or Zulang, maybe even Nebuchadnezzar, but I won't really go into him. So YSG or Zulang are going to be fairly good pairings, maybe a Shogun Impala as well. They're going to be like your top 3 best pairings because of their AoE, because of their very good stats, and also just because a Shogun Impala especially is like the newest archer commander into the game besides Herman. So lots of synergy between those 3 main archer AoE commanders, and I see them going pretty far with Herman Prime. So now that we've looked at Herman Prime as a commander, we've taken a look at his talents, his skills, his best pairings, and more, what do I think of him as an investment? Is he a good investment for low spenders free-to-plays, or are there other better commanders available? And really simply, I think that he has some investment potential, but he's actually not the commander for everybody. And I would say there are some situations where you don't really take a Herman. The first one would be, you got Boudica Prime, you're better off just getting Zulang. And if you've already got a Boudica Zulang right now, Herman's not really going to be that big of an upgrade, if an upgrade at all, to the point where I would say you drop your Boudica to get Herman Prime, because Boudica Zuj is fine. Same thing with Henry Zulang, it's perfectly fine. So if you're running that just one Archer March murder ball, I don't think there's really that room for Zulang for an upgrade. Also, if you're running like a Henry Zuj and then like a Boudica YSG or a Boudica Artemisia, once again, there really isn't that room for an upgrade for Herman, unless you make a 3rd Archer March, or you sacrifice a better commander like Boudica, or you sacrifice Artemisia. But then again, you don't really need to get rid of her, because Herman, yes, he's slightly better, but she's still going to do pretty well in the open field. So when I look at Herman as a commander, he's only a good investment if you've got commanders like, let's say, Nebuchadnezzar. Maybe you're like me, you've got Osiris. Maybe you've got some other weird commanders like Tamiris. Maybe you've got a Gilgamesh, something you can easily replace and it's going to be a good upgrade. So only then would I say Herman's a good investment. And also, if you're the first time entering Season of Conquest and you have YSG, or Season 3 and you have YSG, he's also going to be a slightly better choice than Boudica Prime. Also, if you have Zulang and you have him with like a Nebu right now, getting Herman is actually a pretty good idea. It's going to be a decent upgrade, and Zuge will certainly benefit from it. So I think Herman has investment potential, but you definitely want to go further into his skills. He is quite expensive to unlock his full potential, because I think that if you go 5-5-5-1, you probably get around 65 to 70% of his potential, but the last 30% is in that fourth skill and the expertise. So there's a lot of value in the later skills, which means he is expensive, which is why he definitely does lose some investment potential there. But he also is a strong commander, no doubt about it. And if you're looking to get a good upgrade to your mutable like I am, he's definitely a commander you will be looking to invest in, especially if you have a lot of AoE commanders or commanders that you are noticing are becoming quite outdated with the current meta. So Herman has investment potential, but I don't think he's the commander for everybody, which may be shocking to some of you. So now that we've made it to the end of today's video, I would like to just start off by saying, everybody, Merry Christmas if you celebrate. If not, I hope you just had an amazing day. And also that I make the best Archer content in Rise of Kingdoms. If you didn't notice, I have a full playlist of every single Archer commander, an in-depth guide for them, even commanders like Edward of Woodstock, Thutmose, El Cid, any Archer commander you're looking for, I will have a playlist for it. This playlist will be linked on the end screen of the video. So if you're looking for any of the Archer commanders besides Ashurbanipal Pal at the time of this recording, then go check out that playlist. You can find every commander up until Herman Prime, even Zulang, Ditto, all the Archer commanders are going to be there. Now I just want to say I thank you for watching, and I hope you have a very great day.